everybody, welcome back to my channel. This month is Ehlers-Danlos Awareness Month. Now I've already done a video on my channel about EDS, so if you want to go watch that, I'll leave, there'll be a pop-up or I'll leave a link in the description. But today I wanted to talk more, well, I've actually written a list of things I want to talk about. Like, I've kind of separated it into categories. So a diagnosis, so kind of what the steps are to get diagnosed, how long it took me, the symptoms I got and what I have, aids I use, so for example braces and stuff like that. And then I want to just quickly touch on the related conditions that EDS can cause. So let's jump straight into the video. This was highly requested. A lot of you, after I did my Ehlers-Danlos video, you guys wanted to know like how I got diagnosed, who diagnosed me, what kind of tests I had to get, you know, to that point, like who kind of first mentioned it to you, how did it come about, etc. So that's what this video is going to be about. I didn't want to basically repeat the video that I already did just because I've already done one. So quickly, EDS is a genetic condition, so it means I've inherited it from my parents or my parent, and it runs in my family. So with that said, it affects the collagen in your body, which is basically the stuff that makes your joints like hold together. Basically, collagen is everywhere, so without it or lack of, instead of your joints sitting like this in the sockets, they become a bit more like floppy and they don't hold in properly and they slip out easily. So dislocations are a super common thing. They happen daily because there's not enough collagen to keep them locked in place like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, people get dislocations, like everybody gets dislocations, but it would take a lot more force in a normal person to dislocate. Say, for example, if I lift up my shoulders to wash my hair, sometimes my shoulder will slip out. That's how easily it can just slip. So I doubt that would happen in a normal person. Very highly unlikely. So let's start with the first category, and that is my diagnosis, how it came about, like my journey to one. So in the short term, it took 2 years for me to get diagnosed from the point of somebody first saying, hey, this could be Ehlers-Danlos. And the first person that ever mentioned that to me was actually a renal doctor. And at the time I didn't even think anything of it. He just said, oh, I can't remember how he mentioned it, but I remember him mentioning Ehlers-Danlos or EDS, and I had no clue at the time and I couldn't remember the name. Then a couple months after that, I ended up seeing a kind of like a bone, not like an an orthopedic doctor. They were kind of an orthopedic doctor, but not quite. They were a lot higher than a physio though. But I was seeing them about a hip injury. They were testing my hypermobility and I scored a 9 out of 9 on the, I think it's pronounced the Willetton scale. If you guys don't know what the Willetton scale is, it's basically a scale where they can see, so for example, you can bend your finger back, so my pinky, if you can do that you get 1 point, and I can do that on both sides. So I got 2 points for that. Then you get a point for putting your thumb to your wrist, and you can get a point on each side for both thumbs, so that's 4 points. Then if you can touch your hands flat to the ground, that is another point. If your elbows hyperextend, that is a point on each side, and your knees as well. So basically that is how you work out how much you score on the Willetton scale. I will leave a link to that down below if you guys are interested. But basically he was assessing that. And he said you are extremely hypermobile, and then he started stretching my skin, and he said, has anyone ever mentioned Ehlers-Danlos to you? And then when he said that, that clicked, and I was just kind of like, actually yeah, somebody has. It was a renal doctor when I was an inpatient. It was like a month or two before, and he goes, that's very interesting, I think I'm going to send off a referral to, because he'd gone through my medical history first with the POTS, and at the time I wasn't diagnosed with gastroparesis, and I wasn't diagnosed with mast cell activation disorder, which are two conditions that can connect to Ehlers-Danlos. So he said, I'm going to send you off a referral to a rheumatologist and a geneticist. So he sent off those referrals, and that got the ball rolling to my diagnosis. So it took 2 years from that point of the renal doctor first mentioning Ehlers-Danlos to the point of me getting diagnosed. But if we are talking about the onset of symptoms, so joint pain, joint injuries, just joint problems in general, at the time I had no idea it was related to Ehlers-Danlos. I got injured quite a lot and I just thought I was clumsy, etc. But if we're talking from the onset of symptoms, I was about 14 or 15, so it took 7 years. But then again, at that point, it wasn't, you know, bad enough for me to see a doctor or realise that there was something wrong, kind of thing. So, how they go about diagnosing you. So, the 2 doctors that you really need to see is a rheumatologist, because they specialise in joints, etc., and a geneticist who specialise in genetic conditions, and they know all about Ehlers-Danlos. So these are the things that they kind of look at, the criteria. So they will do a family history. They will ask you, you know, does anyone else in your family have joint problems? You know, are they hypermobile, etc. They will obviously see what you rank on the Baton scale. So for me, I was a 9 out of 9. Family history. Next things that they do, it's important to not just be diagnosed based off a criteria. You really do need genetic testing. So for that, they take a sample of blood and they send it off, and they, you know, check all your genes and see, you know, they check the genes that they know cause Ehlers-Danlos, and they kind of see if they're mutated, etc. I don't know the fancy terms, but yeah, genetic testing, and they test that's the real way to confirm. And also a skin biopsy to just test the collagen and the stretchiness and etc. So for me, my main symptoms that I get from Ehlers-Danlos is extreme joint pain and dislocations. They're the 2 main components that are caused solely by Ehlers-Danlos, because I could go into other things, but they're not really, I mean, they sprout from EDS, but they're not necessarily caused by EDS, if that makes sense. So yeah, dislocations, joint pain, subluxation, so where the joint partially dislocates but not fully, and then I get a lot of bladder issues as well, retention and incontinence, and that is to do with Ehlers-Danlos. Next, I want to talk about the related conditions. So this kind of sprouts from EDS. So if you imagine EDS is here in the middle, from it, these are the conditions that EDS has caused. So my stomach is paralysed, as you guys know, and that's actually now spread to my intestines and my colon. So it's very slow, my entire GI tract, or it's also known as digestive tract paralysis, if it kind of moves throughout. And that is, Ehlers-Danlos has caused that. I also have heart problems. I have a floppy mitral valve, which is also a known cause. EDS can cause that. I have POTS, which is like an autonomic nervous system response to postural changes. So when I go from sitting to standing, my heart rate jumps up high, my blood pressure drops, and again, Ehlers-Danlos has caused that. Like I said, you know, I've got a couple of different heart issues. I mentioned earlier bladder retention, so that means using catheters, etc. And the last thing is mast cell activation disorder, which basically your mast cells are what help you when you have an allergic reaction. So if you're allergic to bees and you get stung, that reaction is caused by your mast cells fighting, like your body's going crazy trying to, you know, fight the reaction, I suppose. I think I'm explaining this right. But when you have mast cell activation disorder, it means that your mast cells activate when they don't need to. So I could be washing my hands with the soap, you know, within a few minutes my hands are rashy, bright red, hives, because my mast cells are thinking that I'm having a reaction, and, you know, it's the histamine in your body that gets released, and yeah, basically. So allergic reactions, essentially, but allergic to everything. Like I could use a product one day and be fine, have it the next and have a severe reaction. So that is it for pretty much everything. The last thing I want to quickly talk about is AIDS. These are not things that I necessarily use every day, but these are things that I definitely use. So number one is a wheelchair. and I use that mostly for more long distance trips or things that involve a lot of walking, or if we're going somewhere that has unstable ground, because my joints are so weak and they dislocate so easily. It can be tough walking on ground that isn't stable, so being in a wheelchair is much more convenient, it's less painful, it conserves my energy and my strength, so a huge help. But again, I don't use that every day, only if I need to. Things that I have used but aren't currently using is a walking frame, like one of those old people ones, and crutches from, again, knee dislocations, hip dislocations, ankle dislocations, so obviously a very useful tool. Splints slash braces is probably the biggest tool or aid that I use. At the moment, I actually have some finger splints on. Now, as you can see, I only wear them on my first pinkies and thumbs just because those are the joints that affect me the most. The third and the fourth fingers, or the third and the ring fingers, are pretty alright. They don't cause me too much grief. Now, the purpose of this is to stop the upper portion of my finger, so this portion here, from dislocating and hyperextending, because that is the problem that I have. You would think it would be the bigger joint, this knuckle here, but it's not. This is the part that I struggle with. So, without the brace, you can see that my finger, it hyperextends quite a bit, I would say. But with the brace, or the splint, if I try and push it to hyperextend, it won't at all. It will just stay flat like that, and it also keeps the joint in place, so it can't dislocate. If I try and move it around, I can't. The bottom bit moves and the knuckle, but not this little top joint, which is the joints that dislocate. I do get dislocations down here and down here, but with that said, they're rarer and they don't happen frequently at all. So I'm going to quickly just show you a couple of braces just that I've got lying around in my room because I can't be bothered to go into my other room where I keep a big drawer full. So these ones here are thumb and wrist splints, so they protect this joint here and all this here. Now that they are right and left, so I just have to have a look. Okay, this is the left one, so this is what it looks like. Comes down like that. I don't like them too tight, but I have to have them tight enough to, you know, support the joint. Again, I kind of pull it tight and then kind of slack it a bit at the end. And then this bit here wraps around your thumb joint, like so. And again, that is to protect the thumb joint, like the actual, instead of the knuckle up here, and the wrist, because my wrist here is held in place and that can't dislocate either. So I have that. Then I have a couple of different knee braces, but I'll just show you this one here. I have ones with, I prefer splints with metal in the side, but this is what we've got. So this one here, which I usually wear at night because this one doesn't have metal, so it's a lot softer. And then I have this one here, which is actually a hip brace, or hip kind of, like, it kind of straps around the top of your pelvis, and then it straps around the top of your thigh, and it kind of pulls everything in and holds your hip in place. So this is perfect because I use this almost every night, because without it my hips are very painful. So that is probably the brace. I'm not going to unstrap it all, but you guys get it's pretty big. And then lastly, not lastly, but the last thing that I've got here to show you is my ankle splints. Now these ones have metal in because I use these for walking. These ones are my favourite and they're really comfortable. So this is what they look like your foot slips through the ankle bit, and either side, which is kind of hard for you to see, but if I kind of hold it open like that, like you see these little pockets in there is metal, like it's pretty hard. So basically the sides of your ankles are stabilized, but you can still move like your foot, etc., but the ankle portion is stabilized, and that stops subluxation, because every time I put my foot to the ground my ankle does this. So if you imagine like that's your foot and this is your ankle bone kind of thing. This is what happens. So when I walk, it kind of comes up and then it jiggles in its socket and then comes back down. It happens very quickly, but if you were to like slow motion watch me walk and we were to get like a really high focused camera and slow it down, you'd see basically what happens. So basically kind of like when I walk, I'm like this, it kind of jiggles around in its socket like this. But when I put the ankle braces on, it still jiggles, but it's a lot more stable and my walking is a lot less painful and my walking in general looks a lot more stable. So my ankle braces, and then obviously the finger ones, and then I have things like air casts, like the boots, and then I have full-on knee immobilizers. So yeah, braces is probably the biggest one that I use every day, and then another big one which isn't necessarily associated to EDS, but it is a shower chair, and I use that in the shower, and I basically use that to help with my blood pressure when I'm showering, my heart condition where my blood pressure goes up and my heart rate goes up and my blood pressure drops, so I can pass out, and the heat is a huge trigger for people with POTS. So having that shower chair there has been like honestly a godsend. So I wouldn't say I use it every day, but I use it every time I shower. So yeah, I think I've pretty much covered everything that I wanted to cover. If you guys do have any questions or you want me to elaborate more on things that I mentioned in the video, there will be information down below, but I will do my best to try and reply to your comments. If there's things that I haven't mentioned and that you'd want me to mention, then let me know. But yeah, I think that's it. I hope you guys are okay. Please do give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and hit that subscribe button down below. I love you all so much, and I'll see you in the next video.